If you have spent any time on TikTok or Instagram over the last few years, you definitely know who the Scotts are. Kristy Sarah would do these high-energy dances in silly outfits and lots of pranks on her husband. And her husband, Desmond, was a chef and cooked her fancy gourmet meals. They were high school sweethearts who met at age 14, and their TikToks had more than 16 million followers. And their whole brand was romance and their family. They ended up making a lot of money together, and they were Jehovah's Witnesses, and they were very open and proud about that. So you can imagine how shocked the whole world was when Kristy Sarah filed for divorce, and the reason was Desmond's infidelity. I wanted to talk on this podcast why I believe their divorce, and specifically Desmond's infidelity, was most likely always going to happen at some point. I think cheating is 100% wrong, but the thing I hate about it most is that it is so easy to tell your partner you want to leave a relationship, but not when you're a Jehovah's Witness. The fact that Jehovah's Witness was involved, the choice to cheat made a lot of sense. In fact, he might have cheated on purpose. And in this podcast, you're going to find out why. Welcome back to Do You Want to Hear Something Awful? I'm your host, Allison. Today we are going to dissect the performative marriage of Kristy and Desmond Scott and their inevitable infidelity and divorce. We're going to dive into the Jehovah's Witnesses cult to see their religious beliefs, from Kristy Sarah wearing head coverings for prayer to the arrival of Armageddon, and how that ultimately led to Desmond's infidelity. And I'm going to prove that their marriage was crumbling right before our eyes for a very long time, even as they were posting happy family videos. The Scotts monetized everything from pranks, their parenting milestones, their kids, building their dream home, and all of these things about their marriage and their life together. So their income ended up depending entirely on looking madly in love. And I can imagine that this turned their relationship into more of a 24/7 workplace. Over time, this would definitely cause the loss of authentic emotional processing. It forces you to bury real conflict, because any conflict in your relationship not only threatens your marriage, but threatens your income. And in the case of a Jehovah's Witness, threatens your entire community and church family. Now, if the couple is still considered active in the JW or Jehovah's Witness circle, Desmond is going to face being officially disfellowshipped, which means expelled from the church and shunned. There is an announcement read to the entire congregation saying that there is no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and faithful members are required to completely cease all social and spiritual association with that expelled individuals, including friends and family members. They can still attend meetings at Kingdom Hall, but they are even expected to sit separately, and members will never greet or socialize with them. The JW elders handle this publicly so the congregation knows explicitly that Kristy, who would be considered the wronged partner, is free to start dating and remarrying without anybody gossiping or shaming her, and anybody in Desmond's family would know that they should not talk to him again. And so you have to think, in order for Desmond to put his whole religion and family circle at risk, something had to be going on in their marriage that was worth risking. It's funny because people went back to look for signs that they were not doing well, because all of their videos were so happy. And there was a viral TikTok comment from a psychic who predicted the divorce months prior, claiming that the couple's new dream home radiated toxic energy and materialism. People also said in general that Desmond's reaction seemed more mechanical over time. But what's interesting is, even though they were continuing to post all of these incredibly happy, fun videos, the couple actually put together a post-nuptial agreement. And they set up trusts in 2021 and 2023 through a Dallas-based law firm. Now, you don't get a post-nup unless things are already rocky. And the fact that they did this not right before they announced this divorce, but way before, years before, really points to the fact that the marriage did not just break down overnight due to a single mistake, but rather they had been already legally and financially working on untangling their multi-million-dollar empire behind closed doors while still posting happy family content for sponsorships. Desmond's infidelity did not come out of the blue. It was not one drunken slip-up. and suddenly they're divorcing. His infidelity was most likely purposeful and tied to the requirements of the Jehovah's Witnesses, which I'm about to talk about. We'll dive into them more in a little bit. But the second thing I want to talk about is, do you think that it was okay for them to keep faking that their marriage was good so that they could profit? All of the stuff that we saw that we were liking and commenting on was fake. Desmond and Kristy were ultimately both people who had been trained from childhood to play a character for an audience. Their very first audience was Kingdom Hall, where they had to look like morally clean, perfect, submissive servants, and later for the 16 million followers that they gained. And they had to play these perfect characters so that they could protect their multi-million-dollar income and their reputation at church. We have to talk about Jehovah's Witnesses. I'm going to call Jehovah's Witnesses JW because it's kind of hard for me to say that over and over. Kristy and Desmond were raised inside the JW religion, and it's very high control. Some people even consider it a cult. In the ex-JW community forums, people immediately knew why Kristy had cited infidelity in the public paperwork rather than using the polite legal umbrella of irreconcilable differences that most celebrities will use in their divorce decrees. Because of the strict doctrine they grew up under, putting the cheating on the record was necessary because it is the only scriptural loophole to exit the marriage in the JW religion. JWs have crazy rules, especially for marriage. We need to talk about the world that Desmond and Kristy were raised in. They don't celebrate birthdays, they don't celebrate holidays, no Christmas, no Easter, don't vote, don't run for political office, never join the military or salute the national flag. You can't get a university degree, you can't accept blood transfusions, you cannot donate or store your own blood. There is a belief that there's a demon stationed in every country who controls it. If a member is disfellowshipped, as I mentioned before, all of the members, including their own family, are required to cut off contact with them. They have a book just for their elders and elite leaders in the JW organization called Shepherd the Flock of God. And in it, there are so many policies like needing 2 witnesses before a crime can be reported to actual authorities. And the elders must also contact the Watchtower Society headquarters back east first if they find out that a crime has happened, like a sexual assault or abuse, before they contact the local authorities. Another thing the JWs believe is that we're living in the last days. They are saying there's going to be a cataclysmic battle of Armageddon where God will destroy all earthly governments and false religions, and then the dead are going to be resurrected. And active evangelism is mandatory, and members are expected to report the number of hours they spend preaching and witnessing each month. I mean, can you imagine Kristy, Sarah, and Desmond Scott showing up on your doorstep to witness to you? JW children experience conditional love and conditional acceptance, knowing it is so conditional that they can be cast out and shunned by their own parents and everyone they know, and will eventually be killed by God if they don't do what the organization says. You can imagine that Kristy and Desmond both grew up in an environment that did not exactly set them up to have the healthiest relationship to begin with. JWs are forbidden from marrying non-witnesses. Premarital sex is considered a serious sin, and the rules that they have for relationships are really rigid. So dating is extremely chaperoned, and when you date, you are dating for immediate lifelong commitment. You are forbidden from abortions. You're also forbidden from forms of contraception like IUDs, morning after pills, vasectomies, tubal ligations. Women also face intense scrutiny regarding their appearance and conduct. They are expected to mother the men around them and be very nurturing and hold the responsibility of preventing male temptation by dressing modestly. And so if you're assaulted, it becomes your fault for not being modest. And this environment just creates so much pressure on teenagers and young adults in their early 20s to rush to the altar just to experience some freedom, some adulthood, physical intimacy, and independence. The thing is that humans aren't really static, and people can change drastically between ages 14 and 28. And so in a healthy ecosystem, if a couple grows apart, they can seek therapy, they can separate, or they can choose a divorce. But not in the JW world. If the individual feels that they cannot confess their normal human desires to their spouse or to their leaders without facing judgment, they end up suffering alone in this cycle of chronic and toxic shame, and that creates a dystopian dynamic where infidelity is sometimes the only key to escaping a miserable marriage, because separation or divorce is recognized only on scriptural grounds, which for Jehovah's Witnesses is only considered marital infidelity. Seeking a divorce for other reasons is not supported. And if someone loses a spouse or remarries a new partner, it's interesting to note that in that religion, both partners of that person are resurrected in paradise. And it kind of creates this bizarre polygamy dynamic. And even worse, if a victim of severe abuse ends up living on the same street as their abuser for eternity in this new world, the only solution would be a forced memory wipe, which strips away a person's free will and justice so that they can bear living with the abuser next door. Not only is this crazy belief another reason that JWs try to avoid divorce, but also if the wronged partner sleeps with their spouse after that spouse cheats, even after knowing about the cheating, it is viewed as an act of spiritual forgiveness. And so you no longer have the right to divorce them if you slept with them after they slept with somebody else. So you are basically trapped in this marriage you entered as a teenager because, again, they very much push people to get married very quickly. And even when you die, when you're resurrected into the paradise of the new world, you're going to be stuck in this polygamy triangle with the person you were with and then the person that you ended up with later after that person. It's a whole mess. Kristy is very brave for walking away from this relationship with Desmond, and she definitely had to distance herself entirely to preserve her right to leave clean as soon as she found out that Desmond was cheating. It's very interesting to look at Kristy because Kristy does a wonderful job of making women inside the JW organization seem a lot happier and freer than they really are. In JW, women cannot serve as elders, they cannot teach the congregation or lead public prayers if a baptized male is present. And if the woman must lead a prayer or conduct a Bible study in the presence of a baptized male, she has to wear a head covering as a sign of subjection. I mean, can you picture Kristy Sarah wearing a head covering just to pray? Crazy. In a high-control religious organization, love is never unconditional. From the day you are born, you are told that if you step out of line, if you question the doctrine, your parents, your siblings, and your entire social network will shun you. You are raised with the psychological trauma of knowing you can be cast out into the world to be destroyed by God at Armageddon. And so they end up developing an anxious, hypervigilant attachment style and learn to perform compliance to keep people from abandoning you. Now, performing this compliance can also look like maintaining a facade, maintaining this performative, perfect marriage act, and posting that to keep your business afloat, to keep your reputation afloat within the church and within the community, while behind the doors, really struggling in your marriage. Here are some stories of people who grew up in JW regarding crushes and dating and just life as a general teenager. I quote, "Everyone is looking at both boys and girls to see if they have crushes, and everyone talks about it like you're getting married when you're 18 if you talk to or look at one boy too much. People who've grown up in the JW organization say that as teenagers, they had a lot of responsibilities. They knew that they couldn't have a partner until they were older and ready to get married, and that partner had to be from within the JW organization. They had to preach, they had to participate in meetings, have good grades, show a morally clean attitude to give a good testimony. They had to do lots of household chores. They can't go to parties, can't go to sleepovers, can't do extracurriculars. Any person that they hang out with outside the church or the kingdom house is bad company." Other former JWs say that growing up as a teenager, they felt like their body was inherently sinful and entirely their responsibility to take care of all of the grown men around them. When those grown men make slights at your intelligence, you're forced to sit through it with a smile, and speaking up doesn't bode well for you. You have been taught your whole life as a woman you have to be less smart, less capable, and your purpose isn't your own. Your own body isn't yours, it's preserved for your future husband. You have to sit through talks where the only women you hear about are either virginal, whores, mothers, or slaves. You internalize that women gossip, are shallow, and only care for the frivolous, and somehow you must resist this. But no matter how hard you do, the people around you will always project this misogynistic idea of women onto you anyways. Asking too many questions around your own autonomy is considered sex obsession, so you grow up to be a stranger to your own body. You might be pulled to the side by a sister to lecture you on appropriate dress. If you are too outspoken, a brother will take it upon himself to humble you. The threat of sexual misconduct looms on every interaction you have with the opposite sex. You have to grow into adulthood learning to balance misogynistic ideals and contradictions. Some of the boys your own age might even jokingly call you a Jezebel or whore of Babylon because the outfit you selected and the parent in your life also agreed was appropriate for you is what they would deem to be too slutty. These projections and glares will soon come from men of all ages at the congregation, and it will somehow always be your fault. You'll be taught about how to be a good neck to your husband. If he lays his hand on you, that's not a good enough reason to leave. You'll hear stories of your sisters suffering this fate. Another person said none of the extracurricular activities at my school were allowed. I was forced to preach almost every weekend to please my parents. There were creepy older men at the hall who would hit on me and hover around me while I was underage, and older women bullied me for my hair and clothes. I was relieved to finally leave the organization in my late 20s. I felt jealous and sad I missed out on so many childhood memories, birthdays, Christmas, sleepovers, extracurriculars. I couldn't even watch TV, movies, or listen to music or read books like other kids. Every form of media was policed. I remember being berated for sneaking Wizards of Waverly Place on Disney Channel and dragged out of the theater during Princess and the Frog. I wasn't allowed to self-express at all. My clothing and appearance was scrutinized and needed to be approved. I wasn't allowed to play sports, join academic teams, join clubs, be in school plays, go to football games, go to school camping trips, go to homecoming, prom or dances, date, drive, or even go to college. This culture will really mess people up. And this brings us to the psychological anatomy of why Kristy and Desmond's marriage was really doomed from day one. They both were coming into it from a toxic attachment style raised by conditional love, and then exposed themselves after this young marriage with these toxic attachment styles to fame. Fame plays a large role in this whole situation. There was a study by the Marriage Foundation that tracked high-profile celebrity couples over a 14-year period and found their divorce rate hit 50%, which is double the rate of the general population over that same exact time frame. And some legal data firms estimate that the lifetime failure rate for hyper-famous couples sits around 80%. The most interesting statistic is how quickly these relationships will collapse when people are famous. In their first year of marriage, celebrities are 6 times more likely to divorce than ordinary couples. In the case of Kristy and Desmond, with their religion, it was highly stigmatized to reach out for therapy or for help if they were having any problems in their marriage as they were getting more fame. And having children for high-profile couples doesn't protect them from divorce the same way it does in standard marriages. For normal people, every child that you have mathematically lowers the immediate risk of divorce. But in Hollywood and high net worth influencer circles, every additional child increases the risk of divorce by roughly 4%. Kristy and Desmond didn't get to go through their late teens and 20s meant for self-differentiation and figuring out your identity. They went straight from that strict upbringing I just talked about to becoming each other's entire world and jumping into this marriage where they were locked into the roles according to the JW doctrine. From rushing to the altar to the purity culture piece of this, the toxic attachment born of conditional love, the religious system that prevented them from talking about conflict in their marriage, reaching out for help, the marriage just was always going to break. I'm really proud of Kristy for choosing to walk away from this instead of staying just for appearance's sake. A broken household with fighting and resentment really sets a poor example for kids, and it's just heartbreaking at the end of the day. They were together for so many years. They built their lives together and accumulated wealth, raised 2 really cute kids, and then had their entire marriage fall apart right after completing and moving into their custom dream home in Houston. Be aware of parasocial relationships with influencers, and remember that everything you see on the internet is a lie. It really can be so hollow. There's no rules on the internet forcing us to be honest with each other. And people can be manipulating your emotions, taking advantage of your trust on the internet to keep their income rolling in. Many people were so personally affected and felt shattered when they found out this was a lie. But you have to remember that influencers will put out this image into the world because they rely on it for their income and to build their wealth. So don't trust anything on the internet. Be present in your real life and go touch some grass and hug the people you love a little closer today, because that's all you can do. Thanks for listening to another episode of Do You Want to Hear Something Awful? I'm Allison. If this episode made you think, if you have any questions, drop a review, rate us, share it with a friend. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast and follow us for more episodes. And if you want to hear more awful things, come back and chat with us next time. Bye.